Welcome back to Healthy, Happy, Wise, Wealthy. We have with us today Winston Meikle. He's the author of The Power of Love, a Nursing Theory, and I'm excited to jump into all of that. Winston, we have a podcast sponsor, Mindiii, Mindii, which is an IT company out of India. So they help people build apps, great websites, a full stack from start to finish, and all of the data processing and all the back end stuff. They're even in the middle of building hardware for people, such as delivery robots. So they're doing all kinds of stuff with that. So jumping in with you, do you care if I just pull up the book from your website? Because there's a little snippet I would love to read.
No, not at all. Please do.
Okay. The Power of Love Theory. So The Power of Love, a new nursing theory, presents a groundbreaking approach to modern nursing that integrates love, consciousness, and quantum science into healthcare. With over 40 years of experience, Winston Meikle proposes a holistic model where love and the human mind are central to healing. Drawing on ancient wisdom, modern neuroscience, and quantum physics, the book explores how intentional thought, emotional resonance, cultural sensitivity, and spiritual connection shape patient outcomes. Through case studies, practical tools, and cross-cultural perspectives, Meikle offers nurses a transformative guide to elevating care from a clinical task to a sacred act of co-creation and healing. And I have that right there on your it's right there on your website, The Power of Love, right? .com.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been doing nursing. I think your bio said you got a nursing degree at age 18.
Yes. My first nursing license was a licensed practical nurse directly out of high school. Actually, I started in high school. My last year of high school, I was in consideration of a career in medicine at the time, and I approached my guidance counselor and I asked them, what does the school offer that would help prepare me for pre-med? And they said, well, there's this nursing course that you could take. It's a vocational school class that's offered, and after you complete this year in your last year of high school, you can go on to finish it off 7 months after graduation, and you'll become a licensed practical nurse at that point.
Wow.
And then I said, okay, let me take that. And I finished my senior year with it, and then 7 months after graduating, I completed that program and was a licensed practical nurse, and I was 18 at the time. And that's, I guess that's when my official nursing career started. But while I was in school, I was a home health aide. So I was actually engaged in the healthcare industry even at the age of 16.
Wow. I just wonder if people can even do that anymore. I feel like I have friends and family that are in the nursing field, and I don't think that it's even an option for people anymore to do it like that.
I don't know. I'm not sure. The program that was offered, it was out in Long Island. It's called the BOCES program. It's Board of Cooperative Educational Services. It was a system of vocational schools offered throughout the county that opened its doors to high school programs. It was an adult learning program that allowed high school students to attend. You would go to
Okay.
school and then get on another bus that would take you to the vocational school. You would spend first 3 periods of the day at the vocational school and then return you back to your high school to complete your regular education.
Yeah.
And that was a great program. I hope it continues to exist because it helped shape my life. It was
Yeah.
very integral in who I became as an adult.
I hope stuff like that still exists. That's so, and I think it's very helpful. Don't you think, for high schoolers to have things that are very hands-on learning, especially as you go in, you're going to spend money in college and to go into a career, but you don't have a chance to try it, try it, a little bit of work in the field to see if it's even something you want to do after all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My high school, this was the 70s, 80s. My high school offered shop classes at the time, which I don't know if it's still being offered. We had different kinds of shop. We had woodworking, metals, foundry, auto mechanics, and this was all offered in the high school. That's not even including the BOCES offerings, where BOCES offered uh, pharmaco- um, when women do makeup and stuff. What's that called? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Cosmetology,
cosmetology. Okay,
cosmetology,
good job.
veterinary services, horse handling, mechanics,
Oh wow.
electrical. Yes, it offered all of that as a vocational school. So those were all things that were available to us as high school students at that time.
That
So
seems like
yes, that would be. I think taking that out of the offerings for the high school students is a detriment because it gives students the exposure to real career opportunities early on in their life.
yeah, and certainly some of these things, so much of the trades are very well sought after and highly paid. So there's no reason to not, and they can certainly learn that as a teenager. So many of these trades are very much we can learn,
Absolutely.
at that age. So why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, okay, so this book and the whole sphere of nursing, you're saying let's integrate things that I don't think are probably well integrated into the classical medical nursing programs and practices. Tell me how this started.
You know, where did it actually started with me observing phenomena in life that suggested that there was more going on in our reality than the five senses explains, more than what conventional wisdom and conventional sciences explains. And I was making mental notes of it as I was observing of people who were successful, people
Yeah.
who were successful in endeavors in their life, sports, business, entertainment. I observed phenomena that I coined the phrase called confidence factor. I observed that people who had a high level of confidence in their success before they're starting their endeavor seem to have a better rate of success. Cockiness, you may call it. I'm not sure how to put it, but I call it confidence factor. And I presented it to my younger brother who was involved with sports. He's 4 years behind me, and in his approach to sports, I kind of encouraged him to think this way, and I think that helped him to be successful in his sports endeavors. And then I continued on in life, and I was working as a nurse. I would experience phenomena at the bedside that defied conventional wisdom, that suggested that there was more going on with the relationship between me and the patient and their illness than was explained by conventional wisdom. And I
Interesting.
attribute it to confidence factor. I didn't have any specific identification of it at the time. It was something that was there that I couldn't explain. And then I became exposed to quantum physics and the double-slit experiment. The quantum physics double-slit experiment is a groundbreaking experiment that raised more questions than answered, but it suggested that there was a mind over matter component in our reality. That mind over matter was suggested, scientifically supported to some extent. And I thought to myself, wow, that may be the thing that is the explanation to the phenomena that I've observed. So I continued on in my career, and I continued to observe phenomena with my patient interactions that suggested that that was a thing. And if you speak to nurses, many of them will tell you that they've had encounters with patient interactions that defies conventional wisdom, or they would coin as a minor miracle or unusual happenstance or a significant coincidence, or they'll all have a story of their own to offer about experiences that defied conventional wisdom. That was more than a coincidence. So I continue to just take note and make note of these occurrences in my experiences, and putting the quantum science component in alignment with them, it started to make more and more sense. And so I said, okay, I'm going to write a theory about this. this. I'm going to write a nursing thing. I'm going to figure out how to apply this to our work to have it happen purposefully instead of just incidentally. It's,
Interesting.
yeah, it's like okay, we're experiencing this and it's happening incidentally. There must be a way to make it happen more purposefully. So, I remark and I think about the debate between Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr. This debate started in 1927 at the Brussels, Belgium, Savoy meeting of the most brilliant minds of the time. At that meeting, Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr spent the majority of the time debating their different positions as relates to our reality, the nature of our reality. Albert Einstein was in the particle physics realm where, time, space, matter was proposed, and Niels Bohr was in the quantum physics world, as he had just made some observations that suggested that quantum entanglement was a real thing, and that the observer effect was a real thing, and suggesting that we're living in a participatory world where thoughts, emotions, intentions, and actions can have an impact on our physical reality outside of our minds. And that debate went on for close to 100 years until another scientist by the name of Anton Zeilinger, who won a Nobel Prize for his work, did some research and study into quasar lights from quasar stars in the sky, in celestial observations. He did some studies to try to determine what is the nature of our reality. And at the end of his research, he determined that we do live in a quantum reality as expressed by Niels Bohr. So after getting exposed to that, I said to myself, okay, that's it. I mean, if that's what this information suggests, then we should be acting from that reality. If that is the nature of our reality, if Niels Bohr's experiments determined that we're living in a quantum reality, then we should be approaching what we do from that understanding, from that reality, from that perspective, knowing that the observer effect is real, quantum entanglement is real, and we are in a participatory reality. So if that's the case, let's act purposefully within that reality.
Amazing. Can you give us more information? Let's just start with one of them. So quantum entanglement, can you explain what that is and then how it applies to nursing?
Sure. Okay, I'll do my best to see.
That's two big questions.
No, it's not. It might take a few minutes.
Yeah, go for
All right, so quantum entanglement. Okay, let's start with Albert Einstein's particle physics reality. Well, in Einstein's world, we have particles, and particles are the nature of our physical reality. And two particles are separate. And to have an interaction between the two particles, there has to be physical interaction between those two particles. And also, for one particle to move from one place to another, there is a time component attached to it, right? So if from moving anything from here to there, there was a time component attached to the traveling from here to there, right? Mm-hmm. Quantum entanglement suggests that when two particles are entangled, they have a relationship, the physical relationship that allows one to affect the other outside of the time component, outside of a distance component. Two particles can be a galaxy apart, and when you do something to one, instantaneously the other will react in like, right? Removing the time component, right? Removing the time component altogether. That's the entanglement component. In the quantum physics double-slit experiment, what was suggested is that the observer has an effect of what we call physical reality. When the experiment, that's a lot of explaining, but to break it
It's great.
down,
It's great.
to break it down, the observer of subatomic particles has an effect of how the subatomic particles represent themselves. Outside of being observed, they exist in a wave potential, and when interacted with consciousness, they are condensed into what we consider physical matter at that point. They exist as potential until interacting with consciousness, and then they become what we call our physical component, our pieces of matter. Okay, so
Okay.
with the quantum physics participatory observer effect, suggesting that mind over matter is a real thing, as the observer can now have an impact on how physical reality represents itself. And then quantum entanglement, knowing that particles interact with each other regardless of distance, time, and space. That means we're in a participatory reality. That means that our consciousness, our subjective consciousness, thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not able to affect and impact our observable, objective physical reality. So if that's our reality, then we should act purposefully within that understanding. Let's use it to our advantage to create. Now, this can also extend into what people might call manifesting.
Yeah.
So if you consider what manifesting is, you can easily suggest or imply that that is the mechanism by which manifesting works. So if that's the case, let's manifest better outcomes for our patients through our intentions, thoughts, and emotions.
Wow. That's so much. And I think people have always, I think, like, I've heard about this a little bit and maybe read a little bit on it, but the thought of using it in practice, and then in practice something like, nurses who are really in the healing world, right? That day-to-day interaction with patients, what a beautiful thing to do that.
I've been a nurse my entire adult life, and I love what I do, and I've spent a lot of time observing the results and effects of my interaction with people. When I meet someone for the first time and they ask me what I do, my response is, jokingly, I said, I save lives, I make people better. So, and I love what I do. I love being able to say that. I love being able to say that. And working in the cardiac ICU for many years, where we take people from the edge of leaving this world and restoring them to their best selves, physical selves again. I've gotten really used to that feeling of seeing my work resulting in someone being better. I've gotten to the point where I'm almost addicted to it. And there's some neuroscience that says that there is a biochemical component that is something like a drug addiction when you are involved in actions like that, where you can see and observe your work resulting in someone's life being better. You can have a physical response that you can grow used to, and I think I have. I've gotten used to seeing my work. See that person leaving here looking like that? I did that. I did that. I made that happen. I was involved in making that life better. I've gotten used to that, and I love it. I love it. So applying new knowledge and understanding and wisdom to that world is just intuitive. It just was, natural progression.
Can you give an example of of like one of these, like, I guess, however they describe it, or you would describe it, the coincidence, mini miracle, the quantum entanglement, whatever you call it, with patients, where like the intention does make a difference, has made a difference?
I don't know. Let me just suggest that I've always been given the person that's difficult to do. The person that, is obstinate, resistant, get out of my room, I don't want you anywhere near me, that type of, don't talk to me, don't touch me, or, self-detrimental behaviors. I gravitate towards those folks because I feel like I have the ability to turn them around. I crack those hard shells. I crack those hard nuts.
Oh,
I bring them around to the good side, and I've been able to do that over and over and over again in my life. Take people saying, I hate you, get out of here. So where's Winston? I don't want anyone else but Winston,
no.
type of a scenario. I have had a scenario where I had a patient who, in the cardiac surgery ICU, we had the most advanced treatment modalities that we applied to our care. One of the treatment modalities we have is called LVAD, a left ventricular assist device. It's an implanted heart pump that's implanted and attached to a person's heart to help circulate blood throughout their heart and throughout their body. And it comes with a drive wire that comes out of your abdomen and is connected to a controller and battery packs that helps to drive it. Right? And that's a very sensitive device, and it's a very when you have that, you're in extreme ends of heart failure, and this device is used as a destination and sometimes as a bridge to a heart transplant. This will keep you going until you are able to receive a heart transplant type of a device. And that drive wire that comes out of your chest is a very sensitive part of the apparatus, as it is exposed to the external world and it leads directly back to your heart. So maintaining stability and lack of infection of that device is a very important aspect of its care. I had an opportunity at one point. We had a patient in our unit come to my unit, and before I got involved with them, they had developed a drive wire infection, which was a very serious problem because having bacteria on the inanimate wires is a hard fix. It's hard to remove that infection because it's not tissue that's fed by blood supply that you can use your IV antibiotics to address it and to treat it. So it's a very serious infection. And the patient that I had was a frail, very tenuous scenario. And the surgeons offered the family members two options. Either we try with our IV antibiotic therapies to remove the infection that way, or we remove the device and replace it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The option of removing and replacing the device was not really an option because they also suggested that the patient would likely not survive that process. All right. So it's like, okay, we're in a scenario that's almost a no-win scenario. And it didn't look good for the patient. It was looking like we had lost this fight with this patient. And I suggested with the family members, I said, okay, I would have to, I met with them and I said, I'm not your surgeon, I'm just your nurse, but I'm going to give you my 2 cents and I'm just going to offer an approach that I think is the best approach for our patient because, you get attached to the patient and their families and you want the best for them. So I stuck my neck out and said, I think that we should pursue the IV antibiotic treatment approach to dealing with this because the removal of the device will most certainly result in his demise. All right, he wouldn't be able to survive that process. So let's go with what gives us a more greater chance of success, although very slim. And we got together, we met, and they agreed, and we prayed. And I said, I'm going to take this patient every day. Every day I come to work, I'm going to work with this patient. I'm going to make it my business to put everything I have into this patient to help him survive. And that's what I did. I made him my own personal patient where as working 12-hour shifts, it was me and a night shift person, me and another night shift person. and I would do what I did every day, and I would suggest to the nicer person, this is what we're going to do overnight till I get back, and these are the things that we're going to focus on. And these are the things that we're going to, you know, do to inch the patient forward in their recovery.
Yeah.
You know, and I my measure of a good day at work is not whether or not I had an easy day or not. The measure of a good day at work was, did I leave the patient better than I found? That was the measure of my day. If for and whatever component or aspect of their recovery, either they're weaned off of a medication that they needed to support them, or their hemodynamic measures were improved in some other way, or their cognition was improved, their mentation was, that was a measure of a good day at work for me. It wasn't how hard I worked. It was I successful in making the patient better in some way?
Yeah.
And so that's what I approach. That's how I approach caring for this patient every day. You know, come to work and I'm going to make something better before some improvement, some advancement in this patient condition. That was my objective every day, and we worked it and worked it. And there was times when it was very, very precarious. It looked slim and grim. There was one day, a Reiki nurse came to visit the patient. I don't know if you're familiar with Reiki. Are you familiar with Reiki?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that I understand it, but I've experienced
It's
it.
an energy. It's an energy science.
Yeah.
It's somewhat related to what my theory proposes. Somewhat
Yeah.
related. And the Reiki nurse went in to see this patient, and at the time he was very, very ill. He was very, very, very ill. And she comes out of the room and she says to me, "Oh, I just read him. He's going to be dead in 3 days." I said, "What? What?" I said, "Okay, thank you very much for your opinion, but don't ever come back to this patient's room, okay? Because that ideation, those thoughts are working directly against everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm trying to achieve here. And you're interjecting a negative ideation into my scenario that I cannot tolerate. So please don't ever come back. Just don't come back to me, you know?" So, you know, at the time, granted, he was very much on the edge of life and death and was probably considering what world he wanted to be in. You know what I mean? He was probably inside of his body or outside of his body, considering whether he wants to be a part of this world or the next. And, you know, I can't blame her for feeling that, but I'm going to be the half full person, not the half empty person. So I'm going to suggest that he may be very, very close to death, but I can bring him back. I can restore him. I haven't given up on this person yet. You know, until he checks out and says he doesn't want to participate in this reality anymore, I'm going to continue to believe that he does want to participate in this reality, and I'm going to assist him in every way I can. And so I just suggested, don't come back, and we will continue to do what we do, and we continue to work the patient scenarios every day until we discharge him, send him home to be with his family for another 7 to 10 years. So in a scenario that was suggestive of him not being alive for more than 72 hours, we gave him another 10 years.
Oh, good.
Through thoughts, words, intentions, and love. You know, I would go to work, and not just this patient, but all patients who were in very tenuous scenarios. I just felt, this is just my own personal thing. I felt that I could give them some of my life force. You know, I would touch them and say a prayer and say, take some of my energy, take some of me to restore yourself. You know, because I have a belief that, and this is something that I say to my colleagues and patients all the time, is that I have an infinitely renewable source of love that I can't run out of. So I can give it away liberally and not run out of it. So I will give it away liberally. So take some of this, and you'll be better as a result type of scenario.
Yeah,
This is my approach. So
that's beautiful. So it's like the practicality of it in your book for what you're recommending to nurses to do is to just be more vulnerable and sharing yourself. And is that kind of in
oh,
your
yes, in essence, but I would like to relate it more to a nursing theorist of the past by the name of Madeline Leininger. Her theory and her approach with her concept was culturally competent care. That's her theory, her care model. And in culturally competent care, it's an approach to interacting with patients that respects their cultures, right? We're not able to know and understand all the cultures of all the people that we would have to take care of. When you come to work, you don't know what the cultural background of the person is that you have to interact with and engage with and care for. And there are some cultural practices that may be misinterpreted or misunderstood. So the best way to approach these scenarios is by managing your bias, managing your own ideas of what should and could be with regards to this interaction. So that's the best way to be culturally competent is by understanding that your subjective perspectives on what should be on how interaction should go need to be managed so that you can be more respectful and receptive of other cultural practices and behaviors. Some practices, some cultural practices where eye contact is not desired, or some people want to be as close to you so that they can actually smell your breath. And that's their norm. That they can be very, invading what we in our society consider our personal space. You may be invaded, but in the other cultures, that may be their normal practice and behavior. So we have to be mindful of the fact that some of the things that we're interacting in, some of the things that we're observing of in the interactions with these patients may be just a cultural practice and not meant to be offensive or intrusive or invasive, but just part of their cultural norms. So instead of judging them, we just accept them as a potential part of the way they interact normally, and it enables us to interact with them better. So my theory suggests that now that we understand we're in our quantum reality, we need to be more culturally competent as it relates to understanding the ontological nature of our reality. We are in a participatory world, so understand that your words, your thoughts, your emotions have an ability to have a physical impact on the reality. So in our interaction with our patients, be mindful of the energy that you bring into the room. Be mindful of your state of mind and your underlying emotions, because they have an effect on your interaction and will eventually have an effect on the patient's condition. So that is the gist of the theory. It's like our thoughts, words, and emotions matter. Manage them well. Manage them well so that you can create the best possible outcome.
Yeah. So if you were, let's say that a hospital called you in and they're like, this is our nurse meeting. Can you give us 10 minutes of what we should focus on today, some intention for today, or wisdom, or a practice? Like, what would you say to a group of nurses in a ER unit?
I would say, okay, let's understand the nature of our reality, that we're living in a participatory reality, and that our thoughts, words, and matter, thoughts, emotions, and intentions matter, and can have an impact on our physical reality with regards to our patients and our patient interactions. and let's take a love over fear approach to how we interact with our patients, right? Love as an orientation, not as an emotion, but as an orientation, a place of a perspective, a place of origin to how we approach, how we interact with the patient. We don't have to say we're in love with our patients, but we approach our interactions with our patients from a place of loving intention that our actions are a desire for the best possible scenarios for this patient. It's an orientation, not an emotion. And I say that because in healthcare, it's steeped in fear. Fear is an orientation. Where providers are. Let's start with nursing. Nursing students are indoctrinated into a fear-based approach to their interaction with patients early on, where they're told you are working very hard to earn your license. Don't do anything to make you lose your license. Fear-based perspective. Fear doing the wrong thing and fear the outcomes and fear, just a fear-based approach to everything. And I know that the opposite of fear is love. So let's say I love that as I'm a clinical professional, I teach nursing students. And in my clinicals, as I meet my students, I tell them, we're going to abandon the fear-based orientations that you've been indoctrinated in, and we're going to take a love-based approach to how we interact with our patients. All right? We're going to abandon any fear orientation that you may have been given, and we're going to approach our patients with the positive intentions of providing them our love-based care from our most skilled perspective, where we bring our skills, our positive intentions, and our desires for focusing on the best possible outcomes to the interaction with our patients, as opposed to going to the interactions from a fear-based perspective where we're fearing everything that's involved with care. And that's at the core of how I teach my students, that we forget a fear-based approach and we use a most loving approach to interact with the patients. So in teaching a group, that would be the thing that I would focus on, would be a love-based, intentioned approach to interacting with the patients. Removing the fear from the fear component, focusing on the outcomes that we desire, not the things that we fear. And we approach how we interact with them, understanding that our thoughts, emotions, and intentions will have an impact on the physical reality. So let's manage our thoughts, emotions, and intentions well, and bring it from a love-based orientation.
Well, that's beautiful. And you have another service too, the mobile lab. So it's a business you have,
Yes.
which it feels like to me that is very love-based, taking services to people.
Yes. And having been in this industry for as long as I have, I can recall back maybe 30 years at least that there's been conversation regarding decentralizing services, taking the services out of the hospital and bringing them more into the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I considered, how can I do that? What would be a way of doing this? And I decided that providing mobile clinical diagnostic services would be one way of achieving that. Sorry. Where we have two models for this company. And the first one is bringing the diagnostic services you need to the locations that you want. Okay, and that suggests that what's a better place for receiving your diagnostic services than in the comfort of your own living room, dining room, or kitchen, right? Where would you be more comfortable to have your blood drawn or your X-ray taken or your ultrasound done? So that's the first model. The second model is for providers, and it says don't send your patients to the lab, send the labs to your patients. Okay? So that's the two models for that organization, where we're clinical diagnostic services that we bring the diagnostic services to the patient's best location, where they're most comfortable and most receptive, so that they can have a love-based orientation to the care that they're receiving.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and I think that's probably incredibly necessary. So I really enjoy that these ideas that you're putting forward into, just train people younger, and let's approach people with the love and care and the neuroscience, quantum physics offers, and then take services to people. It just all seems very much the way that we would love to see the world go. And I do see in the workplace, I don't even know if it's just, in the medical field, but that negative fear based is, or just negative, or, you focus on, you see something that should be fixed. And so it becomes almost a ticker thing in your head, or it's got to be like this, or we're going to get upset. Just people are people. And
Yeah,
they
you
show
know,
up and they just want things the way they want it. And
yeah,
um, so
and
maybe overcoming some of that. What do you think?
yes, I mean it's societal, and if you watch the news, they say if you watch the news, you're uninformed. I mean, if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. But if you do watch the news, you're misinformed because of all the fear-based reporting that they spend more time on the most horrific aspects of our culture and society and reality, as opposed to focusing on the more positive aspects and the more positive occurrences that are taking place all the time in our society. So it's
Yeah.
an indoctrination into a fear-based reality. So it's not just in healthcare; it's part of our general reality. That's the orientation, is to be afraid. You know, and I say that we can reject that. We can reject that and take a more loving approach. It doesn't have to be, because overall there's more loving interaction taking place than there are of fear-based negative interactions. But if that's all we focus on, that's all we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's very true. And I have someone who lived through some really dramatic, horrible experiences. And I remember just, having the mental talk of going, this is not everything. Like, let's look at these other things. But the bad thing can feel so
so
huge. And
yeah,
it can be so huge and
yes,
damaging that you
yes,
you forget it's the other things are great, but they don't emotionally feel as important as this huge heavy thing.
yes. We can. It will not seem as significant because of how intense the negative interaction may have been. That we lose sight of the fact that if you add up everything on the positive side, it is more, it is greater than the negative interaction that you may have had, the negative experience that you may have had. But when you remain focused on the negative, that seems overwhelming. So it can seem, like that there's nothing else, And
Yeah.
so it takes intention to change, shift your focus and shift your ideations towards what's the more positive realities.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What do you think is the chance that this training that you're doing and teaching is going to find its way throughout the country?
I am very hopeful, and I've been getting a lot of positive feedback as I express and expose it more. I've already started and just almost completed a second edition of this book, which is a doctoral level rigor manuscript that is designed for education of nurses, to orient them to this theory, to orient them to how this theory proposes we approach nursing care. And I expect and I suspect that within the next 5 to 10 years, this will become a standard part of nursing education. Just because the fact that it is promoting a more impactful, positively impactful approach to how we interact with patients and bring about outcomes that we desire.
Yeah.
You know, that's for that reason I believe that it will become a standard part of nursing education at some point in the near future. Just as many of the nursing theorists of the past, their work has become incorporated or integrated into nursing education today, I see that this work will actually become integrated in a significant way into how we educate nurses and how they approach patient care interactions scenarios.
Yeah, I
I'm
sure
very
hope
hopeful
so.
for
Yeah, I feel like we are at a point in society where we're really becoming more open to it. At least I'm hopeful for that.
it. Yeah.
But there is something when you're in a life or death situation, you certainly are more open to, um, you know, whatever. The pray for me, just like be with me, send,
Okay.
do the, all these things. I think we're a little bit more open to. And
Yes.
I'm just talking in
Well,
general
well,
when we're in such a.
I appreciate that very much. And I just want to interject that the subtitle to this book is When Science Meets Spirit, a New Kind of Nurse is Born. And that's the subtitle to the book. Now that component of the subtitle speaks to the fact that religious practices and ancient wisdoms have suggested that this has been our reality for millennia. This has been in the, religious lore for some time. There's different religious words or phrases or texts that suggest that this has been our reality for some time. And now advanced sciences is demonstrating that there was significance to these proposed ideas that have existed for thousands of years. So now what I'm doing is just bringing or demonstrating that the spiritual aspect and the scientific aspect of how we interact are not diametrically opposed positions, but are actually the same energetic reality being demonstrated as being as one thing being demonstrated and explained using different languages.
Yeah.
The spiritual aspect of how we live and exist in our world is now being explained by advanced scientific exploration. So, prayer is just another way of adding your loving intention into the environment. It's another way of doing what the science explains can be taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's people in, because you're in New Jersey, so if people from other parts of the country that nursing schools get your book, they read it, they want to contact you to maybe come speak with them or something, or do you do that?
Yes, I
And
would love to. I
okay,
would love to address audiences and expose more people to these ideas and concepts. And any opportunity that I have to be able to do that, it would be absolutely welcome. You can reach me at Winston at poweroflovetheory.com. And on my author's website, there is a phone number to reach me directly.
thank you for all this wisdom. What else do you want to share with us before we go?
Well, look forward to my next venture, which
Okay.
is my healthcare consumer advocacy platform, where we empower people to be better consumers of healthcare services through information, education, and support. The platform is called lovingcarepartners.org. That's where the website will be, where we'll provide information and knowledge to healthcare experiences, to how to be a better participant, how to participate better in the healthcare endeavors and interactions through knowledge and understanding, and stop losing your agency when you interact with the healthcare system, where you just relinquish all your power and energy to the system and lose a sense of self.
Hmm.
So, and knowledge, understanding, and information it will empower people, and that's what the platform offers.
Yeah, it can be. I've heard, it can be very confusing,
Yes,
for
it
sure.
is.
It's
It
a
is.
maze, can be a
Yes,
maze.
it can be,
Yeah.
and that's why Loving Care Partners was formed to help people to participate better. One of the things that I have told my patients, and I continue to tell people as they interact with the healthcare system, especially in scenarios where they have to recover from surgery. As one example, is I tell them that your recovery is not a passive endeavor. Your recovery is not something that happens to you. Your
Hmm.
recovery is something that you do and that you have to participate in order for it to have the best possible outcome. Don't wait for it to happen. You make it happen by being
Hmm.
actively involved in the recovery process. There are things that you can do to bring about a better and faster recovery as opposed to taking a passive, wait for it to happen approach. You make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah. That's very good advice. Which
mhm.
it makes me wonder, like this book seems very fascinating to me, and I'm not a nurse. Do you think just people in general who
Yes.
would
Oh,
get
well, okay. Yes. This book is written for healthcare providers, particularly nurses. However, I have started public facing version of this book. I'm
okay?
writing a book that presents these concepts to the other side of the equation. Instead of the talking to the nurses and healthcare providers, it's speaking to the recipients of healthcare services, the patients per se. So
Yeah.
there will be a public-facing version of this theory being offered very shortly.
Oh,
And
that's
and shortly
great.
thereafter, there'll be a parenting book based on these theories, and then shortly thereafter will be a children's series of books that speaks to these concepts to children of various developmental stages, starting with the preteen, no, young children, children's book, preteens, and then teens. With a series of 3 books that children can grow in and grow through each stage, each book, as they develop more the indoctrination into their, you know, participatory involvement in their reality, and that they can use that to have better outcomes in their lives.
That's
So it's the public-facing version, the parenting book, and then the children's books are what's down the pipeline for me.
that's amazing. How can we keep updated on this? Is it going to be on the
My
Power of Love?
website, thepoweroflovetheory.com.
Okay.
Poweroflovetheory.com is my website where you can find my books, offerings, and all information that's related to what we'll be doing moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. And send me an email when these come out, and I'll do a little
I will.
blurb and tell people about it and
Thank you.
put it
Thank you
put it
so
out on the
much.
socials. Yeah, you bet.
I appreciate that so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and to be able to address your audience. It's been my honor and pleasure to be here. I thank you so much, Mary, for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the world. This is needed and really fabulous stuff. So thank you,
Thank you so
Winston.
much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good day.
You too, dear. Thank you so much. Take care.
Did you like that? You can watch more episodes here, subscribe over here. We actually have new episodes with awesome guests every Thursday, so check back in. Is that all?